Hola friends, it is TJ here, and what I am talking to you today about is a film I saw a few days ago that did something that quite literally doesn't ever happen to me a whole lot. I saw There Will Be Blood, and to say that the movie wowed me would be a gross understatement. The movie was just astonishing to me. It's a movie that's gotten a lot of hype built up around it, and I came in with really high expectations of what I was going to see. I've heard how great Daniel Day-Lewis's performance is, how great the direction is, and there was a lot building up to me going to see it. It's been in selected cities for almost, I don't know, 6 months now, but finally I was actually able to see the film after reading so much about it. And I gotta say that I honestly feel that P.T. Anderson you may recognize his name from movies like Magnolia, The Hard Eight, Boogie Nights. Huge fan of all those movies. He's really made his masterpiece so far as a director, so far in his career. It's a classic, like, saga film in every sense of the word. And as odd as it sounds, as epic as the movie is, the best thing that I took away from the film is how kind of localized it is, in the fact that it's really just a character study on a few characters in the film. It's epic without having a lot of characters. A lot of times you think of epics and you think of like 30 or 40 characters, or like kind of the Charles Dickens aspect of where there's 100 characters and they all have their own motivations or whatever. But really, this film is Daniel Day-Lewis in almost every frame of the film, and honestly that may come off as being like too much. How could you possibly want to watch somebody on the screen for that long, and how does that not become arduous? And I just got to say that he is so compelling as this character. I don't know. I personally, I don't know if I've ever seen a performance rival his that I was that enthralled just by him talking, his actions, because it's not even like actions. That's a bad term. I mean, just from his interactions with people and his dialogue, overall his acting, go figure. But there's not a lot of action in this film, if any, really. There's a couple of scenes that are kind of jolt out in your mind after you've seen the whole thing. But overall, there's really not a lot of action. It's really dialogue driven. There's some really great cinematography, some great great soundtrack. But overall, it's really, at its core, it's simplicities that really make this movie stick out to you. There's no real shoehorned in love story, or there's really everything that you need is in the film. There's nothing that you don't need that's in that movie. I can't look at that movie and say, well, I liked it, but I would have gone this way, or I don't really understand why they went in this direction. Everything in this movie is exactly how it should be. And I didn't really explain any of the plot line, but really it's about, I'm sure as you already know, it's about Daniel Day-Lewis, who plays Daniel Plainview, who is he's a prospector. I don't think that's the correct term. He's an oil man, and in the early 1900s, and it's basically just about his being and how his drive affects his life, and it goes into this whole thing with the relationship between his son and the relationship between him and the church, and it's just really, really fascinating. I mean, it's dark. It's as dark as you can be at certain elements, and then there's lighter elements. It really spans the gamut as far as emotional impact goes, and overall the film, I would say, is pretty bleak. But there's a strange kind of beauty to the whole thing about how Anderson put it all together. So I gotta say that There Will Be Blood, the best movie that I've seen in a long, long time. And to all the critics that are praising it, I totally agree with you. This is probably the most abstract review ever, because I don't think I actually really said a whole lot specifically about the film, but If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's an amazing movie, and it's good to see P.T. Anderson really crank out a quality piece of work. So thanks for listening to my ramblings, and you guys have a good night.